Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to Money Monday on the Juice Radio and Talk Show. I'm Executive Pastor Tawana Grant, and today we are continuing in our Visionary Leadership Development Series where we are working on each other and working on our individual selves as leaders to enable us to be able to aspire to another level so that we can increase our ability to perform. And in doing so, we increase our ability to network and make financial strides. So we're looking to move forward. Today's lesson, we're going to be talking about in our lunchtime learning, we're going to be talking about change management and how important it is as we as leaders, visionaries, entrepreneurs, ministry leaders have the ability to navigate through change personally, but then also to navigate with our teams. And so this is critical information that you'll want to have in your toolbox. This is a good tool to carry with you as you move forward into the next level, what God has called you to be and do and aspire to expand and grow. So join us today as we go into our lunchtime learning on change management, leading and navigating change. Get ready.
Welcome to the Juice Radio Talk Show. 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 Reality TV, church reviews. Let's talk happy love and marriage lifestyle. Come and talk with us. Come and share with us. Come and laugh with us. Come on and pray with us.
Regina Clovis, special guest. You should be following your lead. Bless. Subscribe on YouTube. Listen on podcasts. We live on IG and Facebook. This episode is sponsored by Truth and Triumph Ministries.
Good day. Welcome again. It's Money Monday. I'm Executive Pastor Tawana Grant, joining you today as we go into a lesson. We're going to be talking about how do we navigate change? What are the areas that we need to consider? How do we make sure we posture ourselves in such a way that we win as individuals, but then we also manage to encourage our team? We want to make sure that we're looking at change from all aspects, that we're considering not only how it influences the culture that we are creating, right? We are creating a culture. Don't you know, as a leader, you set the tone, you set the pace, you establish the culture and the environment in which the organization will move and thrive in. And so know this, that you're planting seeds within your organization to help you to thrive and help you to grow. And thereby doing so, you make it enabled so that others can come along with the journey. Listen, it's been said that if you are a leader and no one is following, you're just a person taking a walk. And so we want to encourage you so that as you think about it, as you walk through change management, that you understand leading change requires intentionality. You can't just show up and decide that you're going to lead change. No, you have to already have thought about it, already have pursued and had some thought to how you want to navigate this particular change. One of the things I found to be very key in change management is you have to have a strategy. Listen, change is already difficult. People handle change at a different level. Everyone doesn't manage it the same way. And so one of the things that's very crucial to our ability to manage change is to recognize the people that we are working with. Who's on your team? Who's your team and what are their styles of learning? So there are a lot of different strategies for managing organizational change. And we want to talk about that. Some of those strategies is to make sure that you have a key and clear vision. One of the issues that sometimes we can enter into when we have our team, one is that we want to make sure we have a clear and concise vision. Where are you going? The Bible even speaks to that. Excuse me, to write the vision and to make it plain so that he that readeth can run with it. And so it's so key and so critical that as you are operating in faith, as you're getting ready to go to the next level as a next level leader, that you make sure that your vision is clear. How do I strategize for it? You want to make sure that your communication is clear, the vision, writing down where we're going. Here's where we are. And one thing that I've learned as an individual, as leading others in ministry, leading others in the organization, in the marketplace, leading others in our own businesses, is that it's very appreciative if you start off by what we are doing well, where we were, what we've done now, how we've gotten to the place where we are now, giving kudos and giving appreciation to those who have helped you along the journey to where you are, and then give the insights of where you're going. Sometimes you really want to set a level plane. Here's where we are today, because it's hard to mark. If you recall, when you go into most buildings, especially in government buildings, you will see in a hotel, in an office building, you'll see most often that there's a placard on the wall, and it gives the instructions for how to get out in the event of emergency. And one of the things it does is it says, you are here. You got to know where you are before you want to know where you're going. And so part of your clear and concise messaging on the vision and where you want to go is to say where we are now. And so you want to make sure that you communicate that very clearly and very succinctly, because you will guide your team, you will guide the organization from where you are to where you want to be. But you need to have a clear understanding of here's where we are in the market, where we are against our goals for this year, here's where we are against what we had considered to be our vision for the end of the year. And we're 9 months in, we have a couple of months left, right? So we have 3.5 months left. And so what we want to do from here until we get to the end of the year will make the difference in finishing well, finishing strong, finishing on course, finishing on task. And so communication is very clear. One thing you want to make sure, again, is that you, the leader, are guiding your business. You cannot be an absentee owner. You cannot be an absentee leader. Even though we take rest, we take vacation. I just came off vacation and it's wonderful. But even some aspects of my vacation, it was still with the mindset of what I know I need to make sure happens while I'm gone. So setting the stage while I'm gone so that things continue to move forward. And then what do I need to do when I return? So again, part of the strategy as a change agent, you are a change agent. You're the person who facilitates and manages and monitors and guides and supports change through your organization. You cannot expect what you don't inspect. And so you have to be a participant of the process. And so one of the things, again, you want to do is make sure you're very clear and concise where you are and your vision and where you're going. Another point is that you want to have an open dialogue as you manage through change. One of the issues that we have, communications during change, is very essential. Why? Because if you're not communicating and explaining why you're changing things, why we're doing this, why we're doing something new, or why we're doing something extra, or why we've decided this product isn't the product we want to continue with, why we're doing a new POC, proof of concept, why we want to see if this product will hit. Because when you communicate why you're making a navigation, again, we're talking about not just leading through change, you got to navigate through it. And you got to navigate with the people that you are assigned to. And people hear, people understand, and people are motivated at different levels. And so you've got to understand, how do I get the masses, right? How do I get the message clear enough, concise enough, and consistent enough so that I get the majority, my 80-20 rule, I get the majority of everyone going in the same way. Everybody rowing the same way. Everybody walking and thinking the same way toward our intended goal. And then those 20% or 10% that's left that may still need to be encouraged in what the vision and mission is, then you do some one-off conversations. But again, the intention is to work toward understanding. You may not always have agreement. We talked about that before in delegating. We talked about that before in handling conflict. You may not have an initial agreement, right? Everybody agrees that's the best idea, that's the best method, or that's the best strategy. They may not agree, but we can come to an understanding. We can come to an understanding about here's why we're doing it this way. Here's why I feel led that this is the best and most opportune time to do this. Because sometimes, again, everybody has a different idea, different concept. Everybody has an opinion. But when you're the leader, you listen to the voice of your people, right? And so that's the part of that clear, concise, and consistent communication, so that even if they have feedback, sometimes even as a leader, people can give us feedback that can help us rightfully pivot and correct, even though the vision and mission is still the same. It's been said, marry the mission, date the process. And so we don't want to be so stoic and so static in the way that we do things, that we don't have the adaptability or the flexibility to shift as timing is shifted. Think about it, how many organizations who were very big and huge a long time ago, but they didn't shift with the time. Think about Blockbusters, where people went and they rented movies, right? And they didn't move into the digital age of being able to apply or supply that demand in a more digitized format. And now we no longer hear them. They're out of business. And so as you evolve, as you grow your ministry, as you grow your business, one of the key parts, again, because we're in the series about you as a leader, we're in the series about tooling ourselves so that we can be better postured for forward momentum, for forward mobility. One of those things is being able to take feedback from others and be able to consume it, right? That doesn't mean you pivot off of what you've decided, what God has led you to do, or what you've had the data to prove is the right concept or the right idea, but it's something for you to pause and take note of. People want to be heard. People want to be seen. And so when you hear them and you give them voice to their opinion, that means you've given a collaborative effort to the decisioning. And so therefore, everybody can move along with it together. Because again, you may not have agreed in the beginning. We do brainstorming all the time, and we put things on the table. We put things on the whiteboard, and we say, what do we think about this idea? How do we get, that's where creativity starts. It's just from the open dialogue that you have, because you have a respectful environment to receive input. You want to have that as part of a communicator, to have a respectful environment to receive input. And then sometimes even you as a leader, you also need to reach out even further to maybe your silent feedback persons who are more quiet, but they have a lot of information, a lot of ideas, but sometimes the loudest noise in the room gets all the attention. And so even in that, you have to be very key as a leader to look for those people who may not be as outward or an extrovert as some of the other people on that team, but they have powerful information to share that can grow your vision, grow your mission, and grow your ministry. And so you got to be clear and open. Let's be open to communication, open to dialogue. Again, we talked about us as a leader. How do we grow ourselves to be able to self-control, manage our temper, manage our ability to consume information from others, and be able to take critique. That's the only way with some areas in our lives we won't grow in unless we have someone else to sharpen us, to sharpen our thinking, to sharpen the way we do things, to sharpen the way we see things. I can't tell you how many people I have in my life in different areas, in different groups, book clubs, investment clubs, business leaders, ones who are in my marketplace business, who are certified in certain areas, and I learn and I grow from them, and I sit in spaces to learn. Amen. And so we have to have our mindset set so that we are always teachable. And so that as you grow, your people grow, or as you grow, your organization grow, or as you grow, your business grow. And so that's why we're taking this time to impart into you how important and how impactful we are as the leader, as the business owner, as the entrepreneur. What happens and what we do matters to our finances, to our bottom line. Amen. Whether we're in the red or in the black, how we operate and how we posture with others makes a significant impact onto how we're able to deliver. So again, we want to make sure that our communication is continuous, and we want to make sure that we are keeping the lines of communication open. Then you want to not only accept information, right? You not only want to have dialogue, you not only want to be attentive and lucid, but take that information and assess it. Data is imperative to a smart leader, to a strategist, to a person who's just not moved by emotions or what I think or a whim. You get data and information, and then you assess it. You analyze it, right? Because you want to define the change, and then you want to understand the impact of that change against your goal. Is this particular change going to move me forward? Is it going to make steps? There's some decisions we've made in our organization, the decisions I've made in some of our businesses before, that is an iterative process. It only gave me a little bit of advancement, but it got me enough advancement to the next. And so sometimes we're only making decisions because we think, well, if it's not a big change, it's not worth my time. No, it's always worth your time because there's an iterative growth that happens. When you do iteratively growth, you're able to make sure your foundation is stabilized. And so that as you grow the business, you're able to support the growth. The last thing you want to do is try and do a big bang and then don't have the resources, don't have the knowledge, don't have the wisdom in order to support the demand. And so therefore, you don't leave your clients with a good client experience because you weren't ready. And so a lot of times as we make those iterative changes, we assess, we pivot. We assess, we fine tune. We assess, we navigate forward. Sometimes you even fail forward. What do you mean, Pastor? Sometimes you might even make a mistake, or you make a decision rather, and you find out, oh, this didn't really give me the results that I was expecting. But here's what I learned. I learned something from even a negative experience results. I can learn, one, what not to do. I can learn sometimes what decision assessment mechanisms have to be monitored or managed. What caused me to go with that decision and then not get the results that I expected? So what do I need to change in my assessment process so that I am further fine-tuned to get the results I expect? And so even as you fail forward, there's a learning opportunity in it. There's an opportunity for you to glean and for you to grow from that. We grow from all of our experiences, the good, bad, and the ugly. We can grow from them if you receive it as a learning opportunity. I love what I've also heard many times. I either gain from it or I grow from it. And so that can be a choice that you make so that you are able to recover, so that you have resiliency, so that you're able to move through the processes of owning a business. You have to be able to keep your motivation. We talked about that the last time we were together. You have to be able to maintain your own motivation, to seek out areas in your life that can help you maintain your senility. Make sure you keep your mind focused. Make sure you keep and maintain the calmness of your inner peace. You want to make sure that you're doing those things that feed your inner peace. And you also want to make sure that you feed those things that give you motivation. And one of those ways is when you do have to recover, to use it as a growing process, Use it as an opportunity to what can we do better next time? I'm not done. This is where I want to encourage you to have resiliency in your business. Even though something didn't work out the way you intended it or the way you planned, this is not the time to throw in the towel and say, I'm done. No, this is the time to say, I'm not done. Now let me see how I can do this better the next time. So again, having an assessment plan so that when you do interject change, you and the team learn how to assess together. You and the team as an organization learn how to put a change plan in place, right? So what I want to say is that when change come about, don't just look to just throw change in. Oh my goodness, there's some major changes that take months to happen. I've worked on a lot of efforts, and there's been months that it took to craft the right communication, understand what your audience is, who's getting the message. Make sure that there's a way to get responses back and feedback on the messaging. Make sure that they have the appropriate lead time to be able to handle and consume this particular change. Because you always are thinking too on the other party, on your client, on your customer. How does this particular change not only just impact my organization, but what does it mean to the input to my customer and client? And not only am I internally communicating the change, I may have to also externally communicate change. What does that mean as we're shifting time? Maybe sometimes you're changing your business times, or maybe sometimes you're changing your service times. That is a change to people who are receiving the services, the people who are enjoying the experience with you. And so you can't just think about it. let me make sure my people know. No, there are people who are part of the end-to-end experience, and you've got to make sure you take them along with the change. That's what it's called, change management, leading through change and also navigating that particular change. One of the other things we want to talk about today is defining the goal and vision, right? So even in the change, what is it we want to get to? We talked about it. You got to be very clear in your messaging. So what is it we want to get to? You got to define that goal, because how do you know you ever get there if you don't have a goal set in mind? How do you know you ever make it to the next milestone if there's not a milestone denoted? You're just willfully hoping. What do they say? That's a dream. If you don't have a strategy and you don't have a plan. And so we've got to be able to have strategic vision. That's what we talked about. Visionary leaders think ahead. Visionary leaders think ahead. Visionary leaders have insight. Visionary leaders pray for discernment so that you can think ahead about what could be. And not just always the good, but also the negative. What could go wrong? We've talked about looking at your SWOT analysis, right? Your strengths and your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. What is out there that could be a threat to your organization? So it's so key that you define your goals and your vision. So what are these goals that you have to hit in order to get to your ultimate vision? And again, we want to teach our leaders in this space, our business owners, our entrepreneurs, our innovators, that you must be able to strategize. You have to be able to take the time that's necessary to sit down and be still. Sit down and find out. That's why the scripture says, be still and know that he's God. So sit down and know where you're going and where you're leading people to, so that there is a sense of confidence in where you're going. People can follow you. You have great influence. And one of the things that we can do is manage that in integrity. And I believe that's our next lesson. We're going to be talking about the series on next week, talking about integrity. But here we're talking about how you must strategically lead people through change. You can lose people. Yes, you can lose people. You can demotivate people when you don't operate from the capacity of confidence and understanding and clarity, right? And so you want to make sure that you're doing that. We talked about making sure you build a communication plan. You want to effectively communicate, right? We want to make sure not only do we effectively communicate, but you have a plan on how to do so. There are a lot of times when the communication needs to go out to certain people at certain times to get a particular result. And so that's why it's not just communicating, but having a communication plan so that you understand your timings and you understand what is important to do right now. A lot of times in business, we might miss our cues, we miss timing, we have missed opportunities because we have not decided what is the plan to get it done. And so while we have a strategy and a vision, how are we going to communicate it out? How are we going to roadmap it? That's another term that you want to use. What are the key elements, particularly in large events or large organizations, when you're doing something big? What is the roadmap to get us to success? What is the roadmap to get us to done? And so as you work with your team, you're communicating this particular change to get to success, especially if you're doing something new. When you're doing something new, you're doing a new event, you're doing a new product rollout, you're doing a new thought event, right? You're bringing people in to capture information. You have got to be willing to have a strategic roadmap to get to success, to get to your expected end. And so you have to be well prepared as a leader. That's some of the whole conversation that we're talking about as a leader, is that you are intentional in how you show up. I tell people all the time, you choose how you show up. And it's not contingent on how everybody else is doing. I've operated, oh my goodness, in so many lanes in my life, in corporate America, in ministry, in collegiate attainment, and I've set my mind how I wanted to operate. And in some instances, people might tell you, oh, well, that's a lot. Well, you have to do that because you're the leader. Everybody's not called to lead. You have to do that because you have been set aside. You've been called to do something specific. And so if you want to do it well, if you want to operate in excellence, you cannot measure your abilities against someone else who doesn't have that same calling. And so I'm speaking to leaders. I'm speaking to business owners. I'm speaking to entrepreneurs. I'm speaking to innovators. I'm speaking to those who have the charge to lead change. And so when you are leading, you must lead from the front. Yes, we're not leading from the back. You have to be the first partakers. You have to be the first one to push it out. And then you collaborate with your team to get understanding, to get into agreement, right? And to get an understanding to move the vision forward. And so even with the roadmap, it needs to be clear. It needs to be concise. It needs to be not so big that it's unattainable. You have to make your goals and your strategy to be in an attainable level. And so that's why when you're working on visions and you're working on things that may take multiple years, you start at the very basic. Here's what we know we need to do in the next 3 months. Or here's what we know we need to do in the next 6 months. Or here's what we know we need to do next in the whole year, right? And so you chunk it up in pieces of milestones so that as you move through the process, you can, 1, track towards success. 2, you can celebrate success when you hit those milestones, and that increases and motivates others. So again, you have to build a roadmap so that you know where you're going. And then the last thing that we want to talk about is training on change management, because I said change is managed differently from different people. Some people are very adaptable like me. I'm just used to a high frequency of change, because I operate in a capacity both in ministry and in my vocation in the marketplace where change happens every day, all day long. And so I have been tuned to being able to manage that at that level of frequency and that level of criticality. Others are not. And so when you're a leader, you have to be able to have crucial training to help your team journey along. 1, because you want them to be able to understand that you recognize change can be complex. You want them to recognize, because just because we can handle change easier, or we can maneuver through it and navigate through it much easier than others, it doesn't always wear on us so visibly. Whereas others are going through change, you can see it in the way they posture, in the way they communicate, and you can oftentimes see frustration. You want to let them know through training, I recognize that this is normal, that this is a normal human instinct, is to be concerned when things are changing and you're moving out of your comfort zone. So training is key. Having conversations is key. Having the type training that develop, right? So one of the things that I found to be very key is understanding the people you work with, know those that labor among you. What are the areas that, again, you can make the biggest bang in ensuring that there's stability in the foundation of awareness and skill set. So there may be training that is suited for everybody. Just general training on change management, general training on skills and knowledge relative to your line of business, general knowledge on administration. There's some general conversations about team building, team communication, team road mapping. How do you do some of those exercises together? So even as we go into doing the actual execution, we have the tools in our toolbox to be able to do it well. And then there's some strategic training that you might want to consider for some of your leaders. So while you lead, there are others that you have placed in the position or in the authority and responsibility of leaders, and they also need to be enabled to be able to do that well. So you always want to consider that, especially again, we're managing change, we're leading change, we're navigating change. So training is an optimum part of doing that. And we want to encourage you today that you consider that. So again, we talked about today in change management, leading and navigating change, helping the team, helping the organization, helping the ministry navigate as we go to our next. It takes a different mindset and intentionality in order to do it well. Again, some people do it and they lose. They lose motivation, they lose passion, they lose their resources and support. We want you to be able to go through change because change happens. Only thing that's inevitable is change. And so change happens. But we as leaders, innovators, ministry leaders, entrepreneurs, we need to know how to manage change well, so that it leads us to further success. So we have to know how to communicate. We need to create a communication plan. We need to know how to assess change and then to implement a roadmap to the change. We need to understand how to define our goals and our vision. You need to be very clear about where you want to go. You have to be very clear. And then that messaging has to be consistent. You have to be consistent until you reach that goal. And then you establish what is our next milestone, what is next for us, right? But until you reach it, you have to be consistent because you have to be the cheerleader of the vision. You have to be ones that help others to stay motivated, to help others keep their passion and keep their desire and their goals to win. And then you want to do risk assessment. You always want to evaluate all change against its risk and impacts to your organization and then to your customers and your clients and those who would appreciate and enjoy the experience that you are offering. And then lastly, training. Make sure you train your organization. Not only is training good for them, it's good for you. I repeat training all the time. There's some iterative training that we do every quarter. Why? Because it keeps it fresh in mind. It keeps it before you. And so whatever is before you have opportunity to get a clearer lens. Sometimes we've done training. It's just like the scripture. You read the same scripture today, but next month the Holy Ghost may give something different to you because of where you are. So the training, consistent training is always key. You want to continue to be iron sharpening iron. So we hope you enjoyed today's Money Monday lunchtime learning as we talked about change management, leading and navigating through change. Remember, we want you to win. So continue to join us on Money Mondays every Monday at 12 noon for your lunchtime learning. I'm Executive Pastor Grant. Thank you for joining us today. Peace and blessings.